Hello, my name is Jambareeqi, and joining me for an interview is voice actor, musician, and composer Michael Gough. Michael has lent his voice to such characters as Gopher in the Winnie the Pooh cartoons, Colonel Spigot in Tailspin, Johnny in Metal Gear Solid 3, Zazu in the Lion King spin-off Timon and Pumbaa, Raphael in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Deckard Cain in the Diablo video game trilogy, the Carmine family in the Gears of War games, Nasty Nook in the original Spyro the Dragon game, Shrek in the Shrek video games, plus many others for a variety of video games and cartoons. Thank you for joining me, Michael.
You're welcome, James, or Jambareeqi, or J. Let's say J Ram. No, I think clever shortcut nickname there. Anyway, thank you.
So, Michael, what was your childhood like?
Oh my, jeez, we've only got what? How much? It was nice. It was fraught with various childhood issues, as most people have. But I grew up in. I was born in San Jose, California, and I grew up in Los Altos, which is near San Jose, and it's south of San Francisco. It's about 30, 40 miles south of San Francisco, in what's now called Silicon Valley. Wasn't called it then, but yeah, and then I went to grade school, went to Catholic school. The school was literally across the street from our house, behind the house that was across the street from us, and I would walk through the neighbor's yard, through their gate on their back fence to go to school. Went to high school there. Actually went to high school with Steve Jobs, the founder, creator, guru of Apple. He was a few years ahead of me, but so yeah, I kind of grew up in the middle of Silicon Valley without even really knowing it was Silicon Valley back then. And I was an only child for a while. My brother came along when I was like 9. So for 9 years I was an only child, and in a way I think that sort of informed the fact that I eventually became kind of unexpectedly, actually, an actor and voice actor, because I probably spent a lot of time in my room, sort of immersed in my imagination. And I think I even remember parroting things that I would hear on TV, and kind of amusing myself or passing time, doing various things with my voice, having no idea that this would eventually add up or become something that would be, an important part of my life. Yeah, and I became kind of an athlete for a while. I actually went to college on a little teeny athletic scholarship. I was a shot putter and discus thrower, which people, when they look at me now, don't believe me. But back then I was a little bigger and heavier, and I weighed about 230 pounds at the max. And that was really, I loved it. It was really fun. And I really didn't get into acting until I was done with that. And I think it was, in a way, it was sort of a transfer of energy from one thing to another. Because I kind of discovered acting when I was almost done with college. I was an English major, and I had always been into music also. And I thought, well, maybe that's something I'll try to get into, and maybe I'll go back to college, maybe try to get another degree in music. But I was a little too lazy, I think, for all the work that was going to entail. But I discovered the acting thing almost randomly. I just before I was about to graduate from college, I saw signs around campus, and this was at UC Santa Barbara, uh, where I was and had, been on the track team there. Signs around campus that said auditions for original one-act plays. And I just thought, because I always kind of enjoyed reading out loud and, doing things vocally, I guess, that it would be fun to try something like that before I left college. So I did, and I got cast in this one-act play, and it was just one performance. And a little light switch went off. I said, this seems like something that kind of makes sense. So I ended up sticking around and getting another degree in theater, and that's kind of where all of that started. Did a lot of theater in college, and then moved to Los Angeles and did a whole bunch of theater here, and eventually, got a few jobs here and there on camera, and discovered the voice acting thing by taking a workshop, a class, and finding out that, hey, I think this is something that could work also. You never know with show business, because it's all hit and miss, and it's all auditions, and you're trying to get jobs, and there's lots of competition, etc. But it just kind of felt right. So this is like a really long-winded answer to your question about my childhood.
So what was your first ever professional voiceover role that you did?
Okay, the first time I actually got paid for my, to do a voiceover thing, it was, I don't know if this really counts. There were some people that I knew, some friends of mine, this was after I moved to LA, who had a local weekend radio show. It was a call-in, kind of a tech show about home computers, questions. And they knew that I was an actor and could kind of do different voices. So they asked me, they asked me if I would do some commercials for them. And I think they paid me like $50, which at the time I was like, wow, sure. And this was before I had an agent or, had gotten into the union or anything. And it was a really good experience. They had me do one commercial that was kind of like a version of the dating game, where there were 3 contestants and a host, and I got to play all of those, characters. And that was fun. I do remember the very first actual quote-unquote job that I got, after having an agent, which I sort of, in a roundabout way, by taking this class and having these other commercials that I had done for my friends on a cassette tape, I was able to sort of use that to help me get an agent, which is still the same agent I have now. But the very first job I had was, and it was a really weird circumstance, because the woman who's directing this, and it was kind of a narration thing for this brand new cable station called Showtime. And so, and the video was already done, so I was doing a narration to match the picture, to match the video, which is a little bit unusual. I mean, sometimes that happens, but usually you record the voice first, then the pictures come later. But this woman who was directing it, she stood directly behind me, and every time it was time for me to say something, she would like tap me on the shoulder. And I didn't know when it was coming, because she was behind me and I couldn't see her. And I thought, what is this? Is this how this works? Is that how this all works? But no, that was really weird. It's never done like that. It's never been done like that by anybody I've ever met since then. But that, I do remember, that was my first quote-unquote real professional. gig.
Now, one of your first ever voiceover roles for animation was Gopher for The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and it was originally Howard Morris who created the voice of Gopher. How did you achieve that distinct whistle that Morris came up with for the character?
Well, yeah, I think I'll backtrack just slightly and say I think my very first animation job was it was an episode of a cartoon called Defenders of the Earth. You always kind of remember your first thing, but that was just a one-shot deal. Certainly Winnie the Pooh was my first, series, like where, a regular character. And I distinctly remember the auditions for this. They wanted you to try to match the voices of the original characters as closely as possible. So we had to listen to them. And I do remember watching the old, original Winnie the Pooh short films. And I even think I remember when I was a kid, kind of doing that voice in my room or something. And that whistling S just kind of, for some reason, I was able to, make it happen, to reproduce it. And in listening to the character and going to the audition, it just sort of worked. And that was, certainly it was like very exciting for me getting that kind of first job where you actually are part of an ongoing thing. So yeah, I was ecstatic and really excited and happy and grateful that I got to do it.
I see. And I've noticed that most of your voice work has been for games based on movies, which means that you've had to take over the role of a character that was originally voiced by a well-recognized celebrity. Do you rely on impressions to do these roles, or do you treat them like any other role?
Well, anytime you have to do a sound-alike, of course you have to at least approximate the physical sound of this voice. But you also have to infuse it with your own imagination, your own sense of truth. You can't just, it has to come from something in you in order for it to sound real. Otherwise, it's just an impression, and it has no, it has no guts, no depth, no soul, etc. I think one thing that might help in my case is having a musical background. So my mom was a piano teacher, and I was sort of pushed into playing the piano at an early age, and I used to complain and whine about it. And I said, I don't like practicing, but I turned out to be glad. And music is another thing that I'm very much into, but having a musical ear helps. When you're listening to something and trying to match the sound, the cadence, the rhythm, the pitch, and all of that. But again, once you get past the physical aspect of a certain voice, then it becomes just like, any other acting thing. Voice acting is still acting. You have to create a character, and in this case, it's a character that already exists, but you have to kind of transplant it into your own psyche so that it becomes something real, if that makes sense.
Okay, and what would you say is the most difficult thing about voice acting for a video game?
Well, apart from on some video games, let's just say, like Gears of War, for example, and there are certainly a bunch of other ones, they can be pretty taxing on your voice. If you have a lot of kind of violent, repetitive scenarios in a certain game, you have to do them over and over. I've kind of damaged my voice over time. And I actually do go to this guy, this kind of voice teacher, a couple times a month, just to do some exercises to try to at least maintain what I have, and if not, maybe get back some of the, or undo some of the damage that I've done. But and it's especially with video games, because a lot of them will have numerous repetitive scenarios that involve, whether it's attacking or dying or you're on fire, or you're getting hacked to bits, or sometimes you have to do each one of those things 4 or 5 times. The director might say, okay, we want this short, medium, long, extra long. Okay, now you're dying. You've fallen into a pit of acid. Or you're leading the charge. You're attacking. You're screaming. Oh, it just it takes a toll on your voice, and sometimes if it's something that's been really taxing, you can't really talk very well for a couple of days after. So I mean, that's kind of endemic to video games, or certain kinds of video games. So other than that, it's one of the things that I like about certain video games also is that there's such a depth to the storylines that the characters get to really, what's the word? You really get to explore them and go to lots of different places psychologically and physically that you wouldn't necessarily get to do with anything else. And same with Gears of War, or like Diablo, with this character Deckard Cain, who evolved a lot over the 3 games, the 3 Diablos. So if it's a one of the big video games that has all kinds of storylines and layers, that's something that's really cool as an actor, because you get to kind of really sink your teeth into it.
Now, in 1996, you briefly took over the role of Raphael in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. Was there any reason for why you had to replace Raphael's previous voice actor, Rob Paulsen?
I still never really found out exactly why, and I know Rob, quite well. He's one of, he's like in the upper circle of all voice actors. He's certainly one of the greats. I think there was just some kind of dispute between he and the producers, and they just couldn't come to a meeting of the minds. I don't really know all the details of that. And it was a little, I mean, I was, happy to do it. And it was for the final season of the original Mutant Ninja Turtle series. It was a little odd stepping in to the group that had been together for so long. And that's another thing that was really nice about cartoons and animation, as opposed to video games. At least this is the way it used to be, is that most of the time you would record with the group of people. A lot of it now is you're just recording by yourself, especially video games. Which is fine. It's cool. Again, you get to kind of live in your imagination, and the director's there. Usually there are writers who are helping you. But in that case, it was a pretty big group for Turtles, and but I kind of knew a lot of them and knew the director, so it wasn't too awkward, really. And it certainly was a lot of fun and kind of an honor to step into that role and be a part of that for a little while. But yeah, in answer to the question, I don't really know what the what caused the uh, Rob Paulson's exit, but I certainly had seen and talked to him since, and there was no ill will or anything. It's just one of those things that sort of happens sometimes in showbiz.
Who would you say is your favorite cartoon character that you've ever voiced?
Wow. hmm. Okay. Um, Certainly some of the ones you mentioned. Colonel Spigot was a lot of fun. Doing Shrek has been a lot of fun, but that wasn't uh, an original character. Certainly that was sound alike, and so was Gopher, for that matter. I guess I would kind of, if I'm pressed to the wall, I guess I would have to say Gopher. Maybe because it was the first, and it was a very exciting and fun thing to do. I mean, he's still around, but I think he's been kind of permanently put into hibernation by Disney. They haven't used him lately, but I just have I love them all. Anytime you get to do anything, anytime you get to work, that's a great thing. But I guess I can't get over the fact that I have this extra fondness in my heart for Gopher because he was first. And even though it wasn't a character that I created originally, just the fact that I was able to, take that character and continue with it and kind of make it into something was pretty nice and exciting. So, yeah, I guess that would be my answer. And there are certainly lots of other ones that have been great. And that's one of the fun things about animation. You get to be, a gopher one day. You get to be like a hideous, evil mutant the next. You get to be like a young, heroic figure after that. And then you're, like a tribal leader in New Zealand. That's that's one of the beautiful things about getting to work in animation and games. You really do get to tap into your imagination and do all these things that you would really never get to do as a regular quote unquote actor.
Okay, and what about your favorite video game character you've lent your voice to?
Boy, I don't want to get myself in trouble. It's like who's your favorite child? Well, certainly two of the favorites are the Carmine family boys and Deckard Cain from Gears of War and Diablo, respectively. And those are two of the bigger ones that I've gotten to do and have, gone on over time. So, boy, certainly, and there were some characters that I got to do for Elder Scrolls Skyrim. And I will say that for the more recent Elder Scrolls Skyrim, Elder Scrolls 5, I think I had more lines for that than anything I've ever done. They told me afterwards, I think it had been like 2,700 something lines with all kinds of different characters. So something like that is really fun too, even though it's not necessarily one particular character, but the fact that you get to go all over the place with all these different characters is really nice too. So it's sort of a wishy-washy answer to your question. But certainly the first two are definitely right up there. The one thing about Deckard Cain that I've really liked is the fact that where he ended up, from where he started, there was really a lot of growth and evolution. He actually, he just started out as a character that would basically pop up and give you some factual lore, and give you some advice on, where to go and who to beware of. But he eventually, in Diablo 3, he really became a very three-dimensional character where he's very concerned and frightened for the fate of the world and his niece, and he becomes a really interesting, certainly more a character with a lot more depth to him. So that was a lot of fun.
Right. And you're also a theatre actor. What do you love about performing on stage, Michael?
It's I love that it's happening in the moment, in real space and time. And of course, feeling the feedback, feeling the presence and the energy of an audience is always a really nice thing. But the fact that it is live and that it's happening right now at this moment and in three-dimensional space, it's not cyberspace, it's, actual movement and bodies and objects. It's just really cool. And the fact that anything could happen at any moment, even though everything is rehearsed and, but it's kind of cliche, but it's true. It's never the same any two given times. And I've really loved the live, quote unquote, aspect of it. It's a lot of work. When you do a play, it takes up, several months, at least, where you're rehearsing a lot, evenings, weekends, and then, the payoff, the dessert, so to speak, is actually doing the show. So yeah, it's, I think it's probably what a lot of theater actors say, but that is true because there isn't anything else really like it. It's the same with playing live music, doing live theater. It's great because it's live. It's happening right now, and it'll never be the same any other time.
Now, Michael, you happen to share your name with another actor, the late British actor Michael Gough, who was best known for playing Alfred in the Batman films. Does this coincidence cause any inconvenience for your job, by any chance?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it caused an inconvenience. I remember even when I was a kid, I would see his name, look in the paper and see a movie on TV and see his name and say, wow, look at that. It's somebody, it could be me. It's somebody with my name. It's in a movie. And once I started, once I became an actor and joined the Screen Actors Guild here in the US and started, doing a few things, I would actually get fan letters sent to me by mistake because I think people may have just looked up the name through Screen Actors Guild and assumed that it was him, because there probably aren't, there weren't that many Michael Goughs running around. But in fact, he was, because he was British and he was a member of British Equity and had been in, hundreds of films, even before the Batman films. People didn't realize that I wasn't him, so I would get, people would send me, I remember one guy sent me a photo of Michael Gough and Sir Alec Guinness in a still from some movie, and this picture had been signed already by Alec Guinness. And, the note said, oh, please, this is my most prized possession. If you could sign this and send it back to me, I'd be so grateful. And I thought, oh my God, I could fake it, but nah, I had to send it back to him and say, sorry, wrong guy. I'll hopefully you get this back in one piece. And at one point I had this like a huge, box of fan mail. And this was after the Batman movies had started. And every time a Batman movie would come out, I would get a slew of fan letters. And I eventually tracked down who his agent was in London and sent that off to them. And I got a note from him at one point. And this was a while ago. He said, "Oh dear, Mr. Gough, I'm so sorry you've had to put up with this. Unfortunately we share the same name, but seeing as how old I am, you probably won't have to put up with it much longer." And unfortunately, he did pass away last year, but the note that he wrote me was, I don't know, at least 15 years ago. It was very nice. And so, I wouldn't say that it was inconvenient. It was kind of nice. Anytime a fan letter would arrive, I would kind of just assume that it wasn't for me. Once in a while, I would actually get one that was intended for me. But I was kind of happy and honored in a way that, that he had a lot of fans, and I was certainly one of them. So it was nice to get this little note from him. I never did meet him, even though he did spend a lot of time here in LA. I wish I could have met him because I heard he was a really great chap and a wonderful actor.
Now, you're also a musician and composer. Are you self-taught or did you take any lessons?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, my mom was a piano teacher. And she kind of pushed me into taking piano lessons. Not from her, though. That I couldn't have, no, that wouldn't have worked. I couldn't have taken lessons from my own mom. But she, I took lessons from a couple of different guys. But, and I wouldn't have had the patience, with my own mother. I would have said, "Mom, stop, leave me alone." But, couldn't really do that with other piano teachers. And I didn't really apply myself much. I would rather have been outside or doing something else. And also hearing her play, around the house. And she still did. She played the pipe organ for many years at like churches. And so, I learned some of the basics of music, but had I practiced a lot more, or had I felt motivated more when I was a kid, I would have gotten more out of it. So in a lot of ways, I sort of am self-taught, even though I did learn, the basics. A lot of things now I play by ear. My sight reading is terrible. I can't just sit down with a piece of music and play it. I can pretty much play something better if I listen to it and then sit down and try to figure it out. Which is a handicap for sure with music. And I always think, well, if I wasn't, kind of lazy at heart, I would really sit down and put more time into it. But, well, I've gotten to a certain level where it's fun. I love playing, and I kind of have learned how to play a few different instruments over the years. Piano and keyboards is certainly my first and main thing. But flute, bagpipes, theremin, the Irish penny whistle. Guitar is something that I've always kind of tried to learn, at least over the last 10, 15 years. And it kind of confounds me. I've never really gotten the hang of playing the guitar. I can play chords and a few things, but yeah, I haven't wrapped my brain around the guitar yet. But, I do love playing, and I'm a big fan of Keith Emerson, who I don't know if you know who that is, but he's sort of the godfather of all rock keyboardists, the keyboard player with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I'm always trying to learn some of his stuff, which is like not easy to do. And you know, if I get the hang of something and can record it, I put some of them up on YouTube, and there's a couple other ones I'm working on now. And you know, it sort of gives me it's just like a kind of a self-motivated series of musical projects, which kind of keeps me going. But I'm certainly, yeah, my formal music training is pretty limited. But I've been able to get somewhat accomplished anyway over time and working on things, you know, by ear, etc.
Going back to the subject of voice acting, are there any voice actors that you look up to for inspiration?
Oh, yeah, well, certainly, well, Jim Cummings, who was the voice of Winnie the Pooh, you know, I knew him. We had the same agent at the time, and I remember sitting in the lobby when he got his first gig. Actually, and they came out and told him, "Oh, congratulations, you've been cast in this." I'm trying to remember what it was. Maybe it was like G.I. Joe, the cartoon, something like that. It was before Winnie the Pooh. And he's like just, you know, he's crazy talented. He's a wonderful singer, and he's got this, you know, vocal instrument where he can go really low. I mean, some guys just have pipes naturally where they can do things that other people like me can't. And he can go down and do this really deep, bassy, growly thing. And then he can go up and do Winnie the Pooh. And he's just, you know, there's a really, there's a truth to everything that he does. So again, it's all about the, you know, the truth of this character, the acting, even making something extreme and silly sound believable. So he's kind of the first one that comes to mind. I mean, yeah, I mean, Rob Paulson is certainly one of the great ones. Maurice LaMarche, who they were together, they were Pinky and the Brain. There are guys, another guy who I think has vocal cords made of steel is Fred Tatasciore, who does a lot of stuff. He's done a lot of video games and a lot of kind of giant, you know, beastly characters. And he just, I don't know if he is capable of damaging his voice. I mean, maybe eventually it'll wear on it, but yeah, I mean, there are certainly guys that just have a natural gift and some natural God-given pipes and talent that are really great. And I'm, you know, when I listen to them, I'm sort of like, oh, wow, that's something. A lot of times I say to myself, gee, wish I could do that. But yeah, it's certainly inspiring to hear all the even stuff that you think you can't do. It's I love to hear it because it's like, wow, when you hear something really good, it's great.
What advice would you give to someone who is interested in music or voice acting or live acting as a career?
Well, specifically for voice acting, if it's something that you think, you know, you have a talent for and a penchant for, seek out if there are any classes or workshops near you, go and take one. I mean, that's kind of how I started out with the whole thing. It gave me an idea of what to do, what people are looking for. It helps you make, you know, connections. And you'll get to work, you know, hopefully you'll be handed scripts and things and you'll get to work on them on the fly, which happens a lot in the voiceover world. There isn't always a whole lot of time for preparation, so you have to be able to kind of look at something and digest it quickly and come up with something that works at the drop of a hat sometimes. So anything that will allow you to practice that, including like improv classes. Improv is a really good thing to do for voiceover. Um, yeah, you know, if you think you have the creative juices flowing and that's something that you pursue as a career, it can be tough, but and you know you may have to supplement your income along the way. I drove it's called a super shuttle van in and out of the airport for a while. You know, waited tables. But, you know, if you're driven and you feel passionate about it, there are certainly avenues that you can pursue. Some of them are taking classes, you know, going after people that can help you, like agents. Because there are people who make a living doing this stuff. So there are ways that you can get in. It's, you know, I wouldn't say it's easy because there's a ton of competition. But if you enjoy doing it, then all of the work that goes into trying to get work is part of it. That's all part of the job. So an audition, you know, you kind of look at it as a fun little performance that you get to do. And whether or not you'll ever get to do it again doesn't really matter. You got to do it that one time. And well, and as far as the music biz goes, that's a whole different animal, I think, to me. I mean, I know people, certainly, in the music industry. I don't really consider myself part of the music industry. You know, there are times that I've done things with music where I've gotten paid to do some things, but playing the music industry game isn't something that I know that much about, and from what I do know, it's even it's even more of a beast than regular showbiz and acting. But again, if you feel driven down whatever creative path, yeah, you'll find a way, because doing the thing is what you love to do, whether it's playing music or acting or singing. You just keep doing it, and you'll find doors that will open.
Now, for my last question, I'd like to ask you, is there anything in particular that you would like to achieve in the near future?
I always want to... I'd always like to be doing more than I'm doing. In a way, I'm kind of... it's good and bad. I'm sort of a perfectionist, but I'm kind of a little bit lazy too. I have to kind of kick myself in the butt, and being able to do more, you know, a lot of times, you know, when you're an actor and things are slow, you sit around and think, oh God, what am I going to do? I've got to pay the bills. And, you know, luckily, knock on wood, this is how I've been able to make a living for, you know, 20 plus years. But it's all up and down. And again, I'm not really answering your question very well, but I always hope to do more and to be able to get more opportunities to do this thing that I'm really lucky and grateful to be able to do, because I do enjoy it. Sometimes I whine and complain about certain aspects of it, but you know, those things are in the large picture. I'm really happy and grateful to be able to be doing this. So if I can keep it up and keep getting more and more and be able to do this work and to enjoy it, I guess in summing up this answer, I hope that I can continue to feel the degree of fun and passion and excitement about doing this stuff that I've had, because that'll, you know, that's pretty much the best reward.
Well, Michael, thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Sure, James. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I think my answers are a little long-winded, but I get on this train of thought, and it's like, well, the train won't stop until it derails itself, and then, crashes off to the side, and then say, what? What was the question? Anyway, but thank you, James. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
I hope that my listeners enjoyed this interview. I think we should give recognition and respect to those that do provide voices for video games, because it is a very difficult process. Head to www.michaelgough.com to find out more information about Michael. If you'd like to check out stuff that I've produced, then head to jambareeqi.com, and feel free to tweet me at Twitter